time is not a human invention. We like to think that we created the second, the minute, and the month. But before the first mechanical gear ever turned, time was already etched into the living world. While we look at our smartphones or wristwatches to see the date, ancient civilizations looked at something much slower, something much older, and something far more resilient. They looked at the back of a turtle. If you pick up a turtle, specifically many species found across North America and Asia, and you look at its carapace, you aren't just looking at armor, you are looking at a mathematical constant. Nature has a rhythm. The moon orbits the Earth approximately every 28 days. If you multiply that by 13, you get 364 days, just one day shy of a full solar year. This isn't a coincidence. It's a biological reflection of the heavens. Looking on the back of a turtle, this is what you'll find. 13 large central scutes. These represent the 13 full moons of the lunar year. You will also find 28 small marginal scutes. These represent the 28 days of the lunar month. For thousands of years, this wasn't just a pattern, it was a survival tool. It told people when the salmon would run, when the corn would be planted, when the hard freezes of the winter were approaching. In many indigenous cultures of North America, the continent itself is referred to as Turtle Island. The legend tells of a great flood where the world was recreated on the back of a massive turtle. But this isn't just a myth, it's a mnemonic device. By linking the very ground that we walk on to the calendar on a turtle's back, ancient people ensured that every child knew how to track time. When we look at the Lakota, the Anishinaabe, or the Haudenosaunee, we see a sophisticated understanding of the 13 moons. Each moon had a name: the wolf moon, the strawberry moon, the harvest moon. They weren't arbitrary names. They were ecological markers. Why did they stop using this? Today, we use the Gregorian calendar, a system of 12 months. It's clunky, it's mathematically dirty. But the turtle calendar is fixed. It aligns almost perfectly with what we know now as the International Fixed Calendar, a 13-month system where every month is exactly 28 days. We're going to explore why this 13-month system is actually more accurate to the human experience than the 12-month system that was imposed by the Roman Empire. Ancient people weren't primitive for using the shell. They were observant. They recognized that the same math that moved the tides was growing on the back of the creature in the pond. We're going to go deeper into the tribal wisdom of North America, exploring how different nations used a 28-day cycle to navigate a continent before maps even existed. To many indigenous people of North America, the turtle just isn't an animal, it's a foundation of existence. The continent itself is often called Turtle Island. And this isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's a way of understanding our place in the cosmos. If the Earth is a turtle, then the turtle's back is our map. Not just of space, but of time. When initially doing research on this, it was told to me that most of the tribes in North America use turtle shells as a timekeeping device. And the 13 moons represented different things for different tribes, depending on where they were located. The Anishinaabe, my apologies if I didn't pronounce that right, are native indigenous people who live around the Great Lakes area, and they consist of about 8 tribes. They have creation stories in their culture. And there's one that really stood out to me, and it's the Turtle Island story. The versions vary a little bit, but this is one that I read, and I'll try to tell it in a way that makes sense. People on the land were fighting with each other, and it kind of was like a Sodom and Gomorrah kind of situation. The creator, Kichi Manitou, decided that he needed to cleanse the land. And to cleanse the land, he flooded the land. The main person in this story, whose name is Nanabu or Nanabuzo, was able to hoist himself onto a log and float around while it was flooding. And there were several animals that were around him when this flood was going on. One being a turtle, a muskrat, a loon. And in the midst of this flood, Nanabu got a vision that if he was able to make it to the bottom of the floor or the bottom of the ocean where he was floating and grab some soil, then he'd be able to create some land that would save everyone, including the animals. At this time, multiple animals were trying to get to the bottom of the ocean to grab the soil. The loon tried, the turtle tried, and then finally the muskrat tried. And when the muskrat went to the bottom and came up, he was dead. And they brought him onto the log. And his little dead paw opened up, and there was a clump of soil in there. When I was reading the story, I thought that the muskrat was the star of the story, which he kind of is. But apparently, the turtle had the idea of putting the soil on his back, which they did. And that soil expanded, and the turtle expanded, and he became an island. This island expanded and expanded over time, and this became North America, which the natives call Turtle Island. While the Western world struggled with leap years and shifting months, the nations of Turtle Island, from the Anishinaabe to the Lakota, used a system that never needed a mechanical clock. They used the 13 moons. As I previously discussed, the 13 large scales on a turtle's shell correspond with the 13 lunar cycles in a solar year. But for the people living on the land, these weren't just numbers, they were a living almanac. The spirit moon, a time of reflection and silence during the deep cold. The sugar bush moon, when the sap begins to flow from the maple trees. The strawberry moon, the time of ripening for the first taste of summer. The harvest moon, when the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, are gathered. Each scute on a turtle's back represents a specific ecological window. If you knew which moon you were in, you knew exactly where the animals were migrating, when the fish were spawning, and when to prepare for the first frost. This was a fixed calendar because nature doesn't lie. Surrounding those 13 central scutes are 28 marginal scutes. To a modern observer, these might look like simple decoration. But to an ancient astronomer, this was the minor cycle. The moon takes roughly 27.3 days to orbit the Earth. But the cycle from the new moon to the new moon is about 29.5 days. The 28 on the turtle's back represents the perfect average. The human biological cycle and the lunar rhythm combined. Here's where ancient wisdom meets modern mathematics. 13 months of 28 days equals 364 days. As any modern scientist knows, the solar year is approximately 365.25 days. So how did the ancient people of Turtle Island account for the extra day? They didn't try to force the moon to fit into the sun like the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar did when he created the Julian calendar. Instead, They recognized a day out of time. This was a day for ceremony, renewal, and resetting the balance between the lunar and solar cycles. By contrast, the Julian calendar, and later the Gregorian calendar, decided to abandon the moon entirely. They stretched the months to 30 or 31 days to force 12 months to fit a solar year. And in doing so, humanity lost its biological connection to time. We stopped looking at the turtle's back and we started looking at a piece of paper. Why does this matter? Because the turtle calendar is predictable. In a 13-month, 28-day system, every month starts on the same day of the week. Every full moon falls on the same date. For Native American tribes, this predictability was a survival advantage. If the strawberry moon always began on the same relative day, you could coordinate massive gatherings of the nations across thousands of miles without a single letter being sent. You simply had to look at the moon and count the scutes on the turtle shell. As European settlers arrived, they brought the 12-month Gregorian calendar. And this wasn't just a change in how time was recorded. It was a tool of colonization. By forcing indigenous peoples onto the 12-month system, the connection to the 13-moon ecological cycle was severed. The sugar moon no longer lined up with the calendar's march. The harvest moon drifted away from September. When you change how a group of people tracks time, you change how they perceive their relationship with the earth. The turtle has been carrying the calendar for over 200 million years. It survived the extinction of the dinosaurs, the ice ages, and the rise of empires. Its shell remains the perfect mathematical model of our solar system. Our modern world is obsessed with efficiency, yet we live by a calendar that is fundamentally broken. We have months with 31 days, some with 30, one with 28, or 29 if the year is divisible by 4. It's a mathematical nightmare for accounting, biology, and logic. But what if I told you, in the early 20th century, the world's most powerful businessmen and scientists tried to fix time? And what if I told you they ended up proposing the exact same system that's found on the back of a turtle? To understand why we are out of sync, we have to look back at the Julian calendar. When Julius Caesar consulted the astronomer Sosigenes of Alexandria in 46 BCE, he had a problem. The old Roman calendar was a mess. Caesar wanted a calendar that followed the sun, but he was also obsessed with the number 12, a number the Romans found perfect because it was easily divisible. By forcing the 12 months to fit in a 365-day solar year, Caesar effectively killed the lunar month. The word month comes from moon. But in the Julian and later Gregorian systems, the month has nothing to do with the moon's 28-day cycle. We traded biological reality for political convenience. Fast forward to 1902. A British accountant named Moses Cotsworth realized that the 12-month system was costing businesses millions in errors and lost productivity. He proposed a return to turtle math. He called it the International Fixed Calendar. In this system, every month looks identical. If the first of the month is a Sunday, then the first of every month is a Sunday. If your birthday is on a Tuesday, it's always on a Tuesday. It's a perfect repeating loop. This proposal was so logical that George Eastman, the founder of Kodak, implemented it in his company. And Kodak used that 13-month turtle calendar from 1928 all the way till 1989. So, why did Cotsworth choose 13 months? Because of prime math? 13 times 28 equals 364? This mirrors the 13 central scutes and 28 marginal scutes on the turtle shell. This system aligns with human labor, financial quarters, and biological rhythms into one harmonious pulse. If the 13-month system was so superior, if it matches the turtle, the moon, and the math, why don't we use it today? Well, I can give you 3 reasons. The first being religious opposition. Many religions were horrified by Year Day because this day would have no weekday name, like Sunday or Saturday. It would shift the Sabbath every year. The second is the number 13. Western superstition regarded the number 13 as unlucky, and this played a massive role in public resistance. The third was the weight of tradition. By the 1930s, the League of Nations was all set to adopt the IFC, but the onset of World War II pushed the project into the shadows of history. When we ignored the 13-month cycle, we didn't just change our planners, we changed our bodies. Biologists have noted that the human circadian rhythm and women's reproductive cycles are tethered to the 28-day lunar pulse. By living in a 12-month solar-only world, we are effectively living in a house where the clocks are slightly fast. We feel a constant, subtle sense of running out of time because our social calendar no longer matches with our biological calendar. The ancient people of Turtle Island weren't just traditional, they were mathematically advanced. They found a way to bridge the gap between the moon and the sun without losing their sanity. But the turtle secret isn't just found in America. We're about to travel across the ocean to ancient China and the Mayan jungles to see how the shell of a turtle became the world's first computer for predicting the future. 3,000 years ago, during the Shang dynasty of China, the turtle shell served as the oracle bone. Priests would carve questions into the shell and apply heat until it cracked. The direction of the cracks, interpreted through the lens of the 13 scutes of the lunar cycles, provided answers. Why the turtle? Because the ancient Chinese saw the turtle as a microcosm of the universe. Its rounded top represented the sky, and its flat bottom represented the earth. Between the two sat the timekeeper. They recognized the same 28-day lunar cycle that we found on Turtle Island. To them, the turtle wasn't just recording time, it was the source of it. If we move south to the jungles of Central America, the Maya developed the most complex calendar systems in human history. While they are famous for their long count calendar, they also maintained a profound connection to the turtle. In the Mayan star maps, the constellation of Gemini was often depicted as the turtle, with 3 stars on its back. The Maya used a 260-day ritual calendar they called the Tzolk'in, alongside a 365-day solar calendar called the Hab. When you look back at the math, the reoccurring theme of 13, like 13 heavens, constantly points back to the same lunar shell geometry. So here we are in the 21st century. We use a calendar that is a relic of Roman politics and papal decrees. We have largely forgotten the turtle, but at what cost? By disconnecting from the 13-month, 28-day cycle, we have created a society that is out of phase. The first cost is economic friction. businesses still struggle with leap weeks and unequal quarters. The second is ecological blindness. Most modern people can't tell you what phase the moon is in, leading to a loss of connection with local tides, planting cycles, and animal behaviors. The third is mental health. There's a growing body of research that suggests that artificial time contributes to burnout. We are biological creatures forced to live in a mechanical rhythm. Today, there's quite a revolution happening. From the 13 Moon movement in environmental circles to tech startups looking at the fixed calendar for better data analytics, people are looking back at the turtle. They are realizing that the International Fixed Calendar wasn't just a radical new idea. It was a recovery of ancient truth. It was a return to the Julian-free world where time was measured by the growth of a shell and the phases of the moon. The turtle doesn't care about the year 2026. It doesn't care about January or February. It simply grows its 13 plates and its 28 marginal scutes, carrying a 200 million year clock on its back. We often think of history as a straight line of progress, but sometimes the most advanced thing we can do is look backward. The oldest calendar in the world wasn't built of stone or steel. It was grown. It was alive, and it's still here, swimming in our ponds and crawling through our forests. So the next time you see a turtle, don't just see a slow-moving reptile. Look at its back. You are looking at the math of the universe. You are looking at a system that perfectly bridges the moon and the sun. You are looking at the original calendar of humanity. Thank you for joining us at Animal Ascension. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to learn about turtles. Please like and subscribe and have a great day.